So it's, let's see, it's Monday night, and I'm in New York City. Flew all day today to get here. Long week of work in New York and New England, and then I fly at the end of the week to Chicago and drive to Brookfield, Wisconsin, and I'm going to the Midwest Gaming Classic for the second year in a row. Very much looking forward to it. It is a show like no other, and episode 154 of Coast to Coast Pinball will be running down that show with Dan and Mark like we did last year. So let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. It's a commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. Looking forward to Brookfield, Wisconsin. Cannot wait. So just in case this isn't all covered in our conversation with Dan Lewson and Mark Zarnowski that we're going to get into here, the Midwest Gaming Classic takes place this Saturday, April 11th and 12th, which is Sunday. 10 a.m. both days of start time. Goes till 8 o'clock on Saturday night, 5 p.m. on Sunday. There are pinball tournaments. I think last year there was somewhere in the range of, I want to say 90 pinball machines, 90 to 100, maybe even more than that. It was a really healthy, packed room of pinball machines. Ton of arcade games, arcade and console gaming is what I'm actually thinking. Ton of console games. More console games than I've ever seen in one place in my life. Tabletop games, vendors with different games. If you're into just sort of retro gaming, arcade pinball, the Midwest Gaming Classic is that for you. If you're one of my friendly listeners with children, or you are a child and you think, well, I don't want to go and be with all the big kids and the ruffians of the world, Sunday is their family day, and it's the epitome of like Americana and gaming and pinball at the Midwest Gaming Classic. There's so many good things. We touch on a lot of it. I kind of just turn Dan loose. Dan Loosen loose. See what I did there? You like that? And he gets right into it, and he will at some point in this call say it's not about him, it's about everyone, and I agree with that, but I do want to really call out the organizers of this and any other big show, how much work that goes into these things. Pinball shows are hard, right? So without further ado, let's talk to Dan and Mark about the Midwest Gaming Classic. Welcoming back to Coast 2Coast Pinball 1 year later, organizer, co-founder, Mr. Dan Lewson of the Midwest Gaming Classic, and VIP coordinator, as we've dubbed him for the show, Mark Zarnowski. How are you gentlemen doing this fine evening?
Rocking on.
I'm doing well.
Dan, you sounded a little stressed when we got you on the line here. Are you gonna make it?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna make it. I have a significant amount of stuff that I have to do tonight, so I'm actually, with one of my hands, I've got my hand on the computer while working on making the announcements for the speakers that Mark has set up, and the other is talking with you. But we're looking good. I mean, once today's done, I actually have tomorrow night, I'm going to a Brewers game with my son. So I'm not so stressed that I canceled the Brewers game on my son yet. So,
well, that's good. You know, going to all these shows that I've been to the last couple years, the Midwest Gaming Classic is so unique because, yeah, obviously you do a lot of pinball. There's a giant room full of pinball machines. It's definitely one of the hallmarks of the show. But you do a ton of different stuff, so you have this just large pull of people from different corners of the gaming world, and organizing it must just be insane. How, in fact, not to throw you under the bus here, after last year's show, you sounded like you'd never do this again, but here we are, full steam ahead. Midwest Gaming Classic 2015. How has the ramp up been this year?
Well, let's put it this way. I laugh as I think about this because last year, the last week lead up to the show, there was a fire every day. And when I say that there was a fire, I don't mean like it was, someone called up and was like, oh my God, I don't like you guys. It was something major went wrong. Centered around me. I got a call the Monday before the show that said, I just wanted to confirm you guys have ordered $20,000 worth of T-shirts. Is this correct? And I was like, we did what now? $20,000 worth of T-shirts would have been enough to give every single person at the show about one, if not two T-shirts last year.
Oh, wow.
So luckily and would have eaten up all of the profits that the show had ever made, period. And then some. So we had to cancel that. On Tuesday, I got a call from the city of Brookfield that said, are you planning on setting up a tent anytime soon? And I said, yeah, it starts being set up tomorrow. And I said, oh, you never got a permit for that? And I said, what? And I said, yeah, and it closes in 30 minutes. If you want to get one, you have to come in now. And I was across the city at work. I was like, oh, my God. And I was really frustrated about that because the city had been working with me and had told me that I'd done everything, and somehow we all missed doing this one. Then on the, I forget if it was Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was Thursday. Wednesday we loaded the trucks, and Wednesday went fine, although it was longer than it should have been because one of the trucks that we loaded up got caught in crazy traffic. So we all stood around outside with a bunch of crap at storage for like an hour waiting for the truck to show up. But then on Thursday, I got the most interesting phone call, which was from a police officer in Brookfield who said, are you planning on running these tournaments like this? And I said, yes. And he said, oh, did you run these tournaments this way in the past? I said, yes. He said, well, then if you run them this way again, so that you know you are willfully committing a felony and we'll be arresting you and placing you in jail. I said, what? And so thus started us down the fun Wisconsin tournament laws path that literally ate up 2 full days of my life. And then the tent that we had last year, just every time that it had a chance to make a good first or last impression, it did not. And so, like, we opened up the show and it was pouring out and there was rain coming in through the ground of it and the heaters weren't kicking in enough. And, like, we finally got around to fixing it all. It was actually Eugene Jarvis who showed up, and when he showed up and I was taking him to Mark to get his badge, he said to me, or he could tell that I was a little bit stressed, and he was like, what's going on? And I was just like, man, everything that could go wrong so far, it just seems has gone wrong. And he told me in much more colorful language, dude, take a step back and look around and realize that 99% of the people here are having a great time, and those 1% of the people that aren't, who cares? That you can't make everybody happy.
Those 1% people are just the ones quickest to go on the internet, unfortunately.
Right. And I mean, part of that was that my wife was running our social media and had texted me like 10 minutes before he had said this. She texted me and said, should I be deleting all these negative reviews showing up or should I just leave them? And I was like, oh my God. And like literally the hall had been open 15 minutes at this point.
Oh no.
So it was like, yeah. And the people that were making those negative reviews then later on throughout the show, my wife was noting that they were like commenting on all these pictures about how much they loved the show. And she's like, why did this idiot give us 1 star? Now, like an hour later, he's talking about how this is the greatest event he's ever been to.
Well,
so,
you know.
I mean, it was just a lot of different things. And then my mood also changed a little bit because I went upstairs at one point. My wife called me upstairs, and I got up there, and I was like, what's going to happen? I was expecting her to say, oh, my God, look at these reviews. What should we do? And instead, she told me that we were going to have our second kid.
Wow,
and so,
at the show.
At the show. So, and he's now upstairs. Thank you. He's now upstairs, Elias, and he's pretty awesome. I like him a lot. And so, yeah, that was quite the surprise, to put it nicely. And then after that point, everything just kind of got better. The end of the show, it was pouring out. We didn't finish unloading the truck until 4 a.m., which was about 5 hours later than we did the show before. And Gary and I were just burnt out. The show last year was, like, ridiculously close to breaking even again. Our attendance on Saturday was actually down compared to the year before, but Sunday was far up, and we're pretty sure that had to do with the giant monsoon that swept through the area on Saturday.
It was a wet weekend last year.
Yeah.
That is true.
Well, and the thing is that we had people from Chicago tell us that they were curious after the show, and they were like, can you tell me what happened on Saturday? I didn't make it up because when I tried leaving and I got to the freeway, I couldn't see anything, so I just turned around and went back home. And so we really do think, and our Sunday attendance was just crazy. It almost doubled the year before. And so we think that what happened is that a lot of people couldn't see out their windshields on Saturday that would have came, and so they came on Sunday instead. And after taking a step back from it all, we basically said, like, look, all right, all these issues, all these giant fires that we had last year are things that should not happen again. And we've taken steps to make sure that they haven't. I've worked with the state considerably on their stupid tournament law. And I will tell you that the state actually agrees with the fact that it's a stupid law, and they are working on changing it for the future. Now, having said that, I'll also say that I don't know that we're going to do anything different in the future because we've got to see how this year goes. Now that we've had a year to plan for it, we think that we've got some pretty sweet things coming up. And, I mean, we never ran the tournaments as a making money thing. In fact, most years our tournaments lost money. If anything, we'd have one or two that would make a little bit of money, and then we'd have like 10 or 11 that would lose money. So in some ways, by taking away the prizes, it makes it less of a risk for us. And it's going to be interesting to see how this year's tournament goes, both pinball, video game, everything else, because last year's tournaments were super popular by just taking away the money part of it. And a lot of people actually came up and they were like, oh, you guys did a great job fixing this. So we're curious to see what they think this year.
What is the crux of the Wisconsin laws? Is it that it's treating it like gambling or something like that?
The crux of the Wisconsin law works like this. There's a triangle that if you match all three sides of the triangle, you are in a legal lottery instead of a game. And the three sides of the triangle are that one is that if you pay in, so if there's an entry fee that can include entering the facility, so like a ticket fee would count or anything like that. The second thing is if you pay out in any way. Does not even have to be a value to it. It has to be something like we are approved for certificates because you can reprint certificates until the cows come home.
Yep.
But we cannot even do trophies, for instance, because although trophies do not have a value in the way of cash after they are given out, they have a sentimental value.
Yep.
And the way that the law is written, sentimental value is enough value. And then the third part of it is chance. And the way that chance is defined is extremely vague. And the problem with the Wisconsin law is that any game is a game of chance according to the Wisconsin law as it's written currently.
Gotcha.
So if me and you go, it doesn't matter if it's pinball, it doesn't matter if it's a video game, it doesn't matter if it is I have confirmed with the state that the league that I play in for volleyball in the summertime is an illegal lottery because we pay in to be part of the league. And volleyball, there's a chance that there would be wind or there's a chance that someone twists their ankle.
It's super vague. That's unfortunate.
And so, yeah, what's interesting is that one of our pinball players actually contacted the state and told the state, hey, this is a problem because what I've been told by the state is that the little people who ask like us, because some people would ask me, who was the whistleblower? I was like, me. We went and we asked, hey, are we legal? And what ended up happening is that they had to come back and say no. And the lady at the state has even said the problem with this law is that nobody assumes that this is how it's written. He said this is how it's written. It's poorly worded, and therefore when people ask, I have to tell them this is what the law says. But she said the problem is that there's so many different companies and stuff like that out there that they just assume that that's not what the law means. So they go out and they do their own thing. And she said prosecutors don't want to prosecute because they're like, well, that's not what the law means.
Sure.
But the problem is that when you ask, we have to tell you,
let
no,
them
you
know.
can't do
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And she said it's a huge problem because, she confirmed to me, for instance, that based on how the law is written, like Chuck E. Cheese down the street is an illegal lottery and should be closed. And the PGA Tour, when it comes to town, is an illegal lottery and should be closed. And so luckily, the person who we talked with at the state actually saw the exact same problem and has said, yes, this needs to be fixed. And we have assurances that they are fixing it. And if not, they have told us that we are going to be working with them hand in hand to basically make sure that we have something. They actually talked about us taking a pinball machine to Capitol Hill and playing against some judges on Capitol Hill to get tournaments legalized essentially in Wisconsin.
Wow, it's like the Roger Sharp show all over again.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I talked actually with Josh Sharp about having either him or Roger come up to play those pinball games here. But they said hopefully it's not going to come to that because they're just going to rewrite the law so it makes sense. And they've actually been in contact with me now a number of times on rewriting the law because what's nice about it is that the people who have at least talked to me about it have talked about making sure that we don't just legalize, say, pinball, and we make sure that everything's legal.
Sure.
For instance, there's a card game called Magic the Gathering that every week there's tournaments at multiple game stores in Wisconsin. They're all small game stores. And if you shut those down, you're going to shut down all those game stores with it, or at least a big revenue stream for them. And so they're very aware of the fact that I understand a lot of where those things lay and those problems lay. And so they've been talking with me with that. And I expect that we're going to have something good. They told me that they already have a plan in place, but the problem is that it'll pass about 2 weeks after our show's over. So
Gotcha.
We'll see. And I mean, you're the one guy that gets the update of this, and everybody that listens to this, because it's one of those things. It's a longer story, but it is ultimately kind of interesting, because we had a number of people that came out and said, "See, pinball is just, you can't do tournaments like that. It's illegal." And I was like, no, it's just Wisconsin's law.
It's just a bad, poorly written law. Looking at the tournaments at the Midwest Gaming Classic and sort of going to the model now, because there are lots of tournaments. I don't want anybody listening to this show not to think there isn't competitive pinball taking place this weekend in Brookfield. There are multiple tournaments, Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday, all of them free. And so we've taken away prizes. There are Whopper points available for these tournaments.
Yes.
Do you have an opinion setting these up? Would you like to see the top players come to your show to play in a high level, with quotations around it, a high reward tournament? Or is that not really the goal here for you and as far as pinball tournaments go?
Well, I'll put it this way. I've always been kind of fascinated by how the Whopper points, if you want to call them Whopper points, work, how that whole thing goes. In fact, the IFPA's first tournament that they did was at our show in 2006. We had Roger and Steve Epstein out at our show officiating as they kind of relaunched. And so I've always been kind of fascinated by that and stuff like that. Having said that, I'm also always someone who is more concerned about not catering to the most hardcore people exclusively. I'm not saying that I don't want them to come out, because clearly I'd want everybody to have fun, but I also find that if I'm going to spend 50 hours putting together a pinball tournament and there's 10 people who are really great at pinball who care about it and no one else does, well, I'm going to have 9,000 some odd people there that are going to be like, well, who cares about the pinball tournament? And then is there really any point of me spending all that time doing that? So what I try to do is, and I also work with Jim, who's our other pinball guy, and we sit down and we worked through coming up with a bunch of different tournaments that would kind of work together. And so the first thing that we've got is that Clock Chaos returns Friday night. And the reason that got worked out, honestly, is we sat down with the state and I said, we did this to have people come out and have something to do before the show. What can we do? And so their suggestion was to essentially run a mini show, because they said, it's even going to be questionable if you just run Clock Chaos, even if it's and what I told them is, I can't have people say it's free, because then we're going to have a whole bunch of people not show up. I don't want to have, a 80-person tournament with only 30 people showing up, because we'll all be standing around going, this is boring. Where on the flip side, I can't make them pay for it and not give anything out, because who's going to want to pay, $20 or whatever to participate in Clock Chaos without anything? So what we did is we decided to save Clock Chaos by essentially making a mini show, and we've got tons of different rooms that are open. A lot of the rooms that are going to be open have special events going on in them. We've got 3 different pinball tournaments going on. We're going to have all the new games out so that people can play them, and that's going to be limited to 200 people. We're by the time I'm done talking to you, there's a chance that it will be sold out. If not, I fully expect it'll sell it tomorrow. We've got less than a handful of tickets left for it right now.
And this is the VIG pre-show party we're talking about.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, there's food. There's an exclusive lapel pin. If you're into other types of gaming, there's lots of other stuff for you to do. If you're into pinball, I think that there's enough to do pinball-wise for 6 hours just by going and playing in the 3 tournaments that'll be open that night. So, yeah, it's a whole mini show. And then my theory for the other days was that we wanted something that was essentially for fun, which the dailies that we're running are for fun. I had a couple actually bigger tournament players email me and say, you realize that by not limiting this, I feel like I'm going to have to play in this all day so that I can make sure that I'm keeping my position. And I wrote back and I said, it will be worth approximately 1/10 of the main tournament. So I wouldn't bother. And they went, oh yeah, you're right. Good point. And so for the big time players, the big tournament that we have should be one of the top 10 tournaments in the country, based on our points that we would have had last year and stuff like that. We have a very simple system that you go through. On Saturday, you show up, you play 6 games. It's actually 3 games. You play them each twice, and then your scores combined. So if you have an awesome score once and a bad score the second time, you have to hope that a whole bunch of people don't have 2 awesome scores. And you're going to be playing on Metallica, Mustang, and Super Soccer. Super Soccer is the old Gottlieb game. And After your 2 entries apiece are done, you are done. And then at the end of the day on Saturday, when we have the overnight break, we're going to immediately tally up all the scores, and the top 37 people will come back for a head-to-head ladder bracket the following day. And so starting at 10:15 a.m., and we're going to tell people when their times are. So if you are the 4th person qualified, we're not going to have you show up at 10:15 a.m. We'll have you show up at 1 or whatever your time is for your first round. And basically we have it so that there will fire off in 8-people rounds, and you have a chance to continue to move up. But the lowest that you can fall is 4 positions down. And it gives everybody a chance to try it out. And you know what, if you do not do great at the machines, oh well, doesn't matter. You tried out the big tournament and you did what you did. But there's also a chance that you could, have a great Sunday, run the table, and have a lot of fun doing it.
How are the daily tournaments going to work? Are those on a single game, or what's the format there?
Single game. It's just high score. There's no playoffs. There's no anything. Like I said, those are supposed to be more of a casual thing. I basically what I did is when I was looking at the new WPPR rules, I was like, I want to make sure that we have one tournament that awards a lot and one tournament that awards basically nothing each day, so that if you are intimidated by, oh my God, I don't want to walk up and play against those 10 people that are, best in the world or whatever, you can walk up to whatever game we have at that time and just try it out and see where you land. And the other thing with that is that we're going to force people in those. And force isn't the correct word, but we are going to make them, if there's 4 people waiting in the line, you'll play a 4-player game. Because that way it's kind of like you're doing a playoff and you're meeting other people. It's supposed to be an introduction to competitive play,
Sure.
basically.
That makes sense. There's also a pin golf event Friday night during the VIG. I know that was one of the tournaments you alluded to. And then, is this the first time you guys have done a split flipper type tournament?
No, this is actually like the 4th or 5th year.
You guys have been running this. Okay, so that's on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. that starts.
Yeah, split flipper has been, it's weird. It goes in cycles. Last year, even though it was free, almost no one cared last year. 2 years ago when it was for money, people loved it, and we had people doing it all the time. Then a year before that, it was still pay, but nobody cared again. So it's weird, and it just goes through something. But we like doing that because it allows us to, Sunday's our family day. And again, our big thing is trying to be social with people, and split flipper allows you to take your 5-year-old and say, hey, you're going to take the left-hand side of this game. I'm going to take the right hand, and we'll tag team play this pinball machine here together.
Very cool. And that's sort of you get 2 entries into that tournament, and then high scores win.
Yeah, actually that's unlimited, but it's high scores win, and you just get a certificate. The big thing that we're looking for again there is that we're thinking that most people aren't going to play it all day because why bother? But we don't want, for instance, a dad and his son to come up and play once and then his other son to be told, no, you can't play because your dad already played.
Gotcha.
So
very cool.
We didn't want to limit it for anything like that. And the other thing is that we've got about 50 certificates so that if you walk up with your kids, we're going to give you and your kids a certificate just saying that you did it.
Very cool. Hey, Mark, who's your big get this year on the panels and in the speaking and the seminars? Who's the person that you're pretty excited to hear, and what should we look forward to from speakers and seminars?
Loaded question. Well, as you know, the show is a lot more than pinball. We have, I think, 14 slots lined up, 9 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday. We'll have several pinball seminars and a whole bunch of other stuff. But one of the things I'm most excited about actually is not pinball. But
How
as
dare
you recall,
you? How dare you?
I know, recall from hosting last year, we had half of the Qbert team there. One of the co-creators, Jeff Lee. Jeff will be back this year, but the other half of the equation is Warren Davis, and we're able to get him out here from California. And along with David Thiel, who could not make it but will be in via Skype from the Seattle area. Probably the first time these people have ever been together in a public area, and possibly a few more people will be in the audience from the early Gottlieb video years there. And we've set aside 90 minutes for them to do that and question and answer. And it's just something we haven't seen before. And to go along with the Gottlieb theme, we're also doing a seminar. Jeff is going to kind of moderate or host this with John Trudeau, because John was at Gottlieb/Premiere, I think, from 1982 to 1990. And he did somewhere between 30 and 40 games there. And, you know, some people don't like those games, but there are some good stuff out there that you just don't see a lot or hear a lot of. So we'll probably be the first show to have a seminar like that.
That's very cool. Also, I see on the list here, Us versus Them, Gottlieb's Amazing Laserdisc Adventure with Warren Davis and Dennis Nordman. Tell me about that.
This is something, again, really interesting. I had met Warren last year at California Extreme. It's one of the other shows I help out at. And I'm like, oh, he's the other guy, the other half of Qbert. And then I found out he was doing a seminar related to this. And I just caught the last few minutes of it. And the seminar was extremely popular. And I waited a long line after it was over to talk to him. And I said, hey, would you be interested in coming out to do something at Midwest Gaming Classic? Because, Jeff Lee was with us this past season or show. And we'd love for you to come out. So that's how it started. And then somewhere along the line, I may have been watching, you can look it up on YouTube, look up Us versus Them video game. And people have recorded the gameplay and the whole demo, attract mode and all that, which is all Laserdisc footage. And the credits in there, it says Dennis Nordman. I'm like, what's this? And then I asked Warren, he's like, well, if it wasn't for Dennis, he was involved in creating the concept for the game. We probably would never have done this. And there's 3 or 4 pilots in the game where you see their helmets and they have their names on them. And obviously you see Lee for Jeff Lee and Davis for Warren Davis. And one of them is Nordman. And interestingly enough, the voice of that is actually a woman. But there had to be more to a story like this. And I don't think Dennis and Warren and Jeff had been together in many years. So that's kind of a crossover between pinball and video there from Gottlieb, actually.
So Dennis will be pulling double duty because he's also doing the From Garage to Factory, the growth of an idea with Whiz Bang Pinball being Dennis and Greg Ferris talking about Whoa Nelly, which will be at the show, if I'm correct.
That's true. We're going to have at least one machine there. I think they had a couple at Texas a couple weeks ago. It'll be interesting because we were actually the first show when they came together, and how I got involved, thrown into the fire, helping out at Midwest Gaming Classic. It was either 4 or 5 years ago. And basically, I kind of showed up, and they needed help getting their AV stuff ready, and there's nobody to do it. So that's how I met Greg and Dennis. That was their first presentation ever about, making their new company, Whiz Bang, and what they were trying to do. So we've seen them here every year pretty much, and from Expo and all kinds of other shows. And now we're here at the point where it literally went from their garage, a one-off, to going to the Stern assembly line.
It's an amazing story. That's going to be good. I guess we need to also address, and I'd like to hear both you kind of give your thoughts on this because it's a big one. Spooky Pinball is coming home in a lot of ways. I think they really believe the Midwest Gaming Classic is sort of their home show, obviously being from Wisconsin, and they are going to bring their last available slots for America's Most Haunted to be sold at the show and then do an auction of number 150 before it sells out. So we're going to see the final America's Most Haunted sold at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and also the game will be there, and they'll be hosting their Cosplay Heroes event on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool because it's both Whiz Bang and Spooky that are kind of having a full circle moment here. Whiz Bang showed off Big Juicy Melons for the first time ever at our show, and Spooky Pinball 2 years ago debuted with an idea to do this America's Most Haunted at our show. I mean, even before that, Ben Heck debuted his machines at our show, and he told me once upon a time that the reason that he started to want to dabble in pinball, period, was because of coming to the Midwest Gaming Classic and seeing all the different pinball machines there and stuff like that. When I first did the Spooky Pinball show probably 4 years ago before the show, I remember Charlie, after it was done, saying, Blue Shirt just absolutely loves Ben Heck. Is there any way that you think that we could meet him? And I was like, yeah, just walk up to him and say hi. And so I didn't myself, but they got together at the show, and obviously some magic has happened since then. And we're extremely excited to have them back. I mean, it's unique because they're one of the people, as I've kind of explained about our show in the past, and it's true, they're one of the people that really get the show, that it's not just, you guys have people that have video games there, why would I ever want to go? And so they embrace this cosplay thing. And last year, the thing that I remember about it that was so funny is that I showed up because I was just like, I wonder, how this is going. So I showed up at about probably 7:45, so 15 minutes after it started. and I couldn't see anybody because the hall was that packed with people. And it's just amazing that what they've done over the past few years, and I'm excited for them. The game's outstanding. I'm excied to be someone that's going to be getting one of them too. And
good for you.
It's one of those things where we, as a show, actually, Gary and I were talking, and we were like, well, we should definitely get one, because what we said is that even if they, whenever this machine is done, they're not going to have ones that they're going to necessarily be wanting to bring back every year. And it's like a historical piece for our show that we should have. So we said we need to get one of these. And it's really exciting that something like that happened. It's a big story in the pinball world, and it should be a big story in the rest of the world too, that something like that is happening and working.
I think it's really interesting because, Dan, you can remember the game was whatever Charlie brought first 4 or 5 years ago. He rethemed some old Williams machine, I think, and that was kind of the start of it. Yeah, there you go. So I remember the start from that, and he had just started the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And to see it just come forward in such a fashion, and the machines are at an affordable price. I think people are seeing that. I have not had a chance to play one. I've been running around the show too much last year. I got to have a chance at it this year. And, as someone who operates games, I'd like to get a shot at that too, I think.
So dollar games, you and me, Mark.
Okay.
Oh, I don't like the way he accepted that way too quickly. I don't.
I remember Seattle or Tacoma.
Oh boy.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's a great story, and I'm super excited to see what they do next.
Me too.
I keep joking with Charlie that my hope, because now they've gone all radio silent on it, I said that my hope is that it's an Ernest Scared Stupid machine. And if it is, I want to be the first in line for it. I have a pretty good hunch that that's not what it's going to be, because he will sell two.
I don't think Charlie will be mad at me. Charlie has given me some information I cannot talk about on this show, but one thing I don't think he will be too angry at me if I do confirm right now. It is indeed not an Ernest Scared Stupid machine. I'm sorry, Dan. Hey, you know what? We are sort of competing podcasts. He might be feeding me misinformation to throw me off the trail.
That could be. It's actually funny because Gary, the other show organizer, the other show founder, and we've known each other since we were like 6. And for whatever reason, we both watched that movie when we were like, I don't know, 8 or whenever it came out. And it still is every once in a while a running gag between us, some of the stuff that's in it. So, like I told Charlie, if he makes that, he has 2 guaranteed sales and no others. So,
well, somebody will probably want to do that for you. Tell me about the changes this year versus last year. What's the show going to look like? Is anything shifting around, changing? I know there's always ways to improve. What is 2015 going to look like versus 2014?
All right. The big thing is the tent that we have. Last year was, like I said, it did not give people a great first impression, did not give people a great last impression. So we've changed it a lot. The first thing that we've done is that we've worked with the company to ensure that the tent is going to be as waterproof as possible. We are putting sandbags around 3/4 of it that had issues with the weather last year, so that there should be no weather coming underneath it. We have up to the number of heaters to approximately 4 times what we had last year. Where the heaters were, it was warm, but where they were not, it was not. The amount of heaters that we have, the quantity of heaters that we have, will allow us to raise the heat inside of the tent by approximately 44 degrees. And so as long as it is essentially at freezing or above, we will be able to keep the tent at least 70 degrees throughout the entire thing. We are doing a lot of other things like that just to make the experience in there more comfortable. Where for our generators, we used 1 generator last year. It was a smaller generator, and it had some issues. This year we are using 2 generators, and they are both big enough that they can power 2 full-size houses with everything on inside them running. So we don't need that sort of power, but it's one of those things where we said if we don't have everything in here set, we don't want to have any problems. And so the worst thing that we foresee happening, knock on wood, is that if we lose power, say on 1 generator for some reason, it will take us a couple minutes to switch it to the other one while we lose half of the lights in the hall or half of the heaters for 10 minutes or something like that. We have someone, and this is amazing. I want to call him out right now because, quite frankly, if it wasn't for Aaron Katz, I don't know that we would have had a show this year. Aaron, he's always been the guy that set up for the after party. But last year he heard, and this is true, on Sunday, Gary went around Sunday morning and talked to all the vendors. Gary sets up the vendors, and all the vendors were saying to him, "Oh, Gary, this is awesome. Thank you so much." And then a couple hours later, we purposely sent around someone else that was attached to the show, but not as high profile as Gary. And when she went around, everybody was telling her, "Oh, this is horrible. I'm never coming back." And we were like, great. So they're all lying to Gary. What's really going to happen? And so Aaron actually heard that, and he said, you know what I would like to do? I'd like to call every vendor and talk to them about what we can do to get them back. And so he's spent a lot of his own time calling all the vendors, talking to them, getting their opinions and stuff like that. And he then said, next year when you guys come, I don't want you guys worrying about the tent at all. It's my job. And so he's taken over that thing to make it run as smoothly as possible. He's coming out early to make sure that it's all set up right. And so if you see Aaron Katz at the show, give him a handshake and say thank you so much for what you've done, because quite frankly, without him, we would not be able to do this, because like I said, Gary and I, without the vendors, we don't have a show. And I say that just because we couldn't afford to have a show without the vendors. And Aaron was the one who confirmed that they would show up, because Gary and I were like, yeah, they're going to tell us yes, we're going to get a tent, and then they're all going to tell us no. So it was quite the thing that he did that. And with that, we've done all this upgrading to the tent, and we expect it's going to be a great experience. Moving on from that, we've added a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot of it's not directly pinball related, but a lot of it is arcade related and stuff like that. So I'll just kind of hit on them quickly. On Saturday, we're doing a local music stage. It's going to be called MGC Music, and we did some bands last year in the bar after the show closed. They were pretty popular, and then we had a band this year contact us and say, hey, we really want to play at the show. Would you mind? And we said, we've been wanting to do music in a tent. You want to see if you can get people together? And we said, maybe you can get like 3 bands. And he said, sure. He came back, and I think he's got 9 bands that are going to play.
Oh, my gosh, wow.
And, yeah, and these are not like, oh, hey, it's 2 guys in their living room or in their mom's basement that just scream really loud and like hit things. These are like really good local bands. Like I've had some local music publications tell us that they're gonna come out just to cover MGC Music. So in the vendor hall, there's going to be reasons to go in on top of the fact that it's the vendor hall. Directly beside that, we've got a place called 42 Lounge, which is kind of a nerd lounge in downtown that is bringing out their stuff so that you can hang out, get an energy drink there, and listen to the bands or whatever. Directly beside them, we have Gold Standard Air Hockey that's bringing in air hockey tables, and they're bringing in world champion air hockey players to compete against. So if you want to do serious, like if you want to learn about serious competitive air hockey, the guy who owns the company and designs the tables also happens to be a 2-time world champion. So that's pretty awesome. Going around the tent, we have greatly expanded our tabletop selection. We have a group called Milcog that's coming in. Milcog stands for Milwaukee Company of Gamers. They're bringing in $35,000 worth of board games for people to sit down and play. And you just go up, you check one out, you can sit down. Some of them might help you play it, if you don't know. If you have a game that you like, you can say, can you suggest a similar game? They'll find a game that's similar for it so that you can sit down and play. We're really excited to have them on board. We've got crane games for the first time ever at the show. Basically, since the whole legal thing happened, I got real particular on some of the laws, and I went to the city, and there's a certain law that the city of Brookfield actually rewrote for us about our arcades and bringing them in, because it was a little gray area how they had it written. And so we now have to license, because of my big mouth speaking up, we now have to license our arcade machines. So it's luckily not in crazy cost, but we're bringing in crane games to help us offset that cost. And because we've actually had people request them in the past that, hey, this is something that's a staple in arcades, bring them out. And so we're going to have about 4 machines there. I think 2 candy cranes and 2 plush cranes. So you can try to win stuff on those. And then going inside, we're going to have a lot of stuff that's similar to the past, but of course every group brings in different stuff every year, more of it. Some of the stuff that I'm excited for is that we have a number of people now that are going to be running Oculus Rifts, which are the VR systems that you can sit down and try out different games in. We're going to have a number of different, what's the word for it? A number of different developers. Last year, we had a bunch of independent developers come to the show, and I'm going to guess that we had 4 or 5 of them come to the show. This year, we have something like 12 already confirmed, and they're getting really excited about the show, which is great because it'll allow us to start expanding into the future if we want to of gaming and running more of where gaming is going. And I mean, other than that, I guess we've got some Magic stuff going on. The collectible card game, Magic the Gathering. Gary and I have actually played that together basically since it came out. And so last year we noticed as we walked through the hotel multiple times, there's people just playing Magic, and we were like, why in the world have we never done anything for this? And so we've added in some stuff this year to kind of start that, and we expect to keep expanding that in the future.
Tell me about the after party. How does one get into the Saturday night after party?
Bring a machine. That's really where it sits. We've had so many people online that have complaints about that, and the truth is just that we want to make sure that the after party remains special. When it started, the idea behind it was that we understand that our show is more broad, and because it's more broad, it means that there is more of a chance that if you're just walking around in the arcade at, say, 2 o'clock on Saturday, that you're not running into someone else who's a game owner. And we had some people say, well, I'd like to bring out my games, but it's not really worth it when I don't meet other people who, are owners and stuff like that. And I totally got that, because for me, the only reason that I keep running the show is because of the people that I meet and stuff like that. I love meeting people. I love interacting with different gamers and, finding out what they like and stuff like that. And so we said, all right, we need a way to make sure that the people that bring the games are the ones that, you can meet. And so we decided to start hosting the after party. And the rule has always been for each machine that you bring, you can get 1 ticket to the after party. And the idea is that then the entirety, basically, of the people that are at the after party are machine owners. And so you can walk up to whoever that's in there and say, hey, so what game did you bring? And they'll say, oh, well, I brought that Jurassic Park. It'll be sweet. What did you bring? Oh, I brought the Iron Man. Oh, sweet. I really like Iron Man too. Or I've got a Jurassic Park at home, or whatever. And it boots up a lot of people making connections with other people in town and stuff like that. And we have a really thriving collector scene. And I don't want to pretend like that's because of the show, but I definitely think that it helps that there's a lot of people that come up with connections because of that. I have connections all over the state, and I feel like I still get a lot of my stuff under market value whenever I decide to buy something, in big part because I have so many connections throughout the state that I'm like, I told someone a couple of years ago, I'm kind of looking for this game, I don't know, and like 2 months later, I had 3 people that had offered me them below market price, and I was like, I don't actually want it right now, sorry. So, but it's awesome because, I mean, that doesn't just happen for me. I know so many other people that have similar experiences and stuff like that because they've met people at the show.
It is one of the most social shows, if not the most social show, and it has an atmosphere like no other gathering of, arcade pinball gaming I have ever seen or even heard about. It's certainly unique, and I know I speak for a lot of people who thank you for putting the effort and energy and time into running a show like this, and it's a hallmark event for everyone in the Midwest, and I know people travel from long distances, make long drives, so I really appreciate you guys coming on, spending some time with me, and promoting the show a little bit. I look forward to seeing you in person in a few days, and if there's anything else I can do for you or anything else you want to throw out there on the show, just let me know, and I really appreciate it.
May I just say this real quick? I do totally appreciate what you're saying, but I'll also say that a huge part of the reason for that atmosphere is it's not me. It's not Gary. It's that we have so many people that every year walk up and say, how can I help and what can I do? And that's what has made our show so special, is that it's about it. I fully understand that if you were coming to the Dan Lucen Minutes Gaming Classic, you'd have a bunch of like half-ass broken pinball machines. You'd have some video games to buy and stuff like that. And I would be completely frazzled because I'd be trying to fix the pinball machines while I'm selling the video games. But what we have is that we have all of these people who come together and they say, this is a community thing and I want to build something in this community to make it awesome. And I mean, like I said, the guy that's doing this band thing, he walked up, or he emailed me, and I've known him from the past, and he emailed me and he said, I would like to help, and this is what I could do to help. What do you think? And Gary and I always try to say yes. We're very bad at saying no to people, which is what makes the show awesome. If you come up to us with a smart idea and we can figure out a way to put it in, we'll put it in. And the main thing, though, is that it's those people that walk up and they say, yes, this is how I'm going to do it. And it's people like you that help us promote it, because otherwise who would come to this thing? I don't know. It's people like the people that run the rooms. It's people like Mark that a few years ago said, oh, their AV guy is off running pinball tournaments. I'm going to hop in and I'm going to help do this. And then since then, I mean, he's been helping ever since. If it wasn't for people like this, the show simply wouldn't exist. And the show would absolutely, if the show existed, it would absolutely suck. And so make sure that and I always tell this to people, and I really do mean it, make sure that when you're out there, if you see something that you like, if you see something that you appreciate, you're playing in the tournaments, thank the people that volunteer to run them, because none of these people are getting paid for this. I'm basically not getting paid for this. Gary's basically not getting paid for this. We're doing this because it's a community that comes together and shows just how great the gaming community can be, and shows all these different aspects and just how all of it can contribute together to make something that's truly unique and truly cool. And so I thank you for thanking me, but I need to throw it back your way and Mark's way 10 times more, because you guys are just as important to the success of the show as I am.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. I hope you have a great show, and we'll talk again real soon.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you, Nate.
I don't know if there's much left to say other than if you're within striking distance and you hear this podcast before Saturday, drive to Brookfield, Wisconsin, come play pinball, challenge me to dollar games, challenge me to quarter games, but I don't have any quarters, so that will not do you any good. You know what I'm saying. Looking forward to it. Can't wait until next episode, which should be really soon. Take care and play some pinball. Later.
Oh, yeah.